As a seemingly endless stream of talent leaves the Walt Disney Company in order to go work for John Lasseter over at Skydance, one name has finally come forth as someone returning to Pixar to direct. Let's talk about Andrew Stanton directing Toy Story 5 here on That Park Place. Hello, I am Jonas J. Campbell, an investigative reporter for That Park Place, and here with me are two people, VashSky and Marvin the Movie Monster. How's it going, guys?
Doing well. Ready to talk about, them trying to once again end Toy Story perfectly. One of these times they're going to miss.
That's really fantastic. When you think about it, Toy Story, obviously meant to be a standalone film. Toy Story 2 expands on the universe, expands on the themes. Toy Story 3, they all seem to be the same idea over and over again. I would say Toy Story 3, pretty good capstone on that. And then Toy Story 4, well, it is the opposite of the lessons that were learned in Toy Stories 1, 2, and 3. But maybe if they come back for one last draft at the well, they'll really get people's money this time. Pixar legend tapped to direct Toy Story 5. This by Chris McPherson over there at Collider. Toy Story 5 is in the works with Andrew Stanton, set for theatrical release July 19th of 2026. That is about 2 years from now, the last time I checked. Stanton's history with Pixar and Toy Story ensures the new installment will capture the magic of the beloved classic franchise. The Toy Story series has a track record of success, with all four films receiving critical acclaim for animation and storytelling. I'm not so sure about the last one. Guys, I'm going to admit, I have never seen all of Toy Story 4 in one sitting. I have seen the entire thing probably 2 times, but every time I try to watch it, it's almost as if it's cursed. Something happens that means I won't be able to finish it. Can either of you review Toy Story 4 for me?
Look, I watched it one time in theaters, and that was enough for me. I thought that it was kind of like the antithesis of what this story has been trying to tell us for all this time. It's like it went from selflessness to selfishness. And, all of a sudden Woody is not the favorite thing anymore. So now he's like, oh, forget this. I'm out of here. Like, instead of work, it's less working as a team, as a unit. It's less being about with friends. And he's just like, yeah, I'm just going to run off and be what I've feared to be since the first Toy Story, a lost toy, basically. I did not like it at all.
I think that's a fair assessment of the movie. You have Woody, who in the first film is trying to convince Buzz to be a toy and enjoy being played with. In the second movie, it's about Woody actually kind of abdicating he could go to a museum and never be played with again, but everyone would love him forever. And he decides to stay there because it's his job to be a toy. And in fact, he relearns what it is to be a toy. And then number 3 is almost like this reincarnation idea of, do you still want to be a toy even if Andy doesn't want you? And then the third one is, hey, you remember your old girlfriend? You want to have a midlife crisis, Woody? Why don't you go? Why don't you go off with her? Live in this bizarre world where you have no owner and you get to self-actualize all day long. So strange.
The plot contrivance of them just happening to run into her.
Yeah.
Like, that was a little much for me. And I mean, Woody in the first one, when he wasn't the favorite toy anymore, he tries to literally murder somebody over it. But then...
Very good point. There's some Jeffrey Katzenberg for you right there.
But it's kind of like we end this thing with like, well, I'm going to be this toy for this new person. And now it's all of a sudden this new person is not heaping lavish praise and attention on me. So I'm done.
Yeah, it's very inconsistent. But let's read a little bit more here. Get ready, Toy Story fans. The beloved Pixar franchise is coming back with a bang as Toy Story 5. By the way, Bob Iger struggled so hard to not say the words Toy Story 5. He called it the next installment of the Toy Story franchise, as if he was ashamed of how many of these they're making.
Well, if you think about, how many franchises out there have gotten a 5th installment? Rocky and like what else?
Fair point.
Well, Star Wars, I suppose.
Yeah.
You really have to, with these long running series, you really have to focus on the characters. Luckily, they have the characters and they never age because they're toys. But Disney right now, obviously, they're working on a live action Moana, which that questions about that only get deeper every day as they have now moved the screenwriter from the live action Moana and made her the director of the Moana TV series turned into a movie. There's so many odd things going on with that makes me wonder, what are you doing here? Also, Bob Iger saying, you know what? We're going to do a Frozen 3 and a Frozen 4. They haven't even announced the live action reboot or remake of Frozen, but you know that they have to be talking about that.
Oh,
And of
yes.
course, Inside Out 2 coming out in just a little bit. Actually, to get back to this, Pete Docter has teased that the sequel will be surprising and is set for June 19th, 2026 release date. And at a recent screening of Inside Out 2, Docter shared some exciting updates about Pixar's upcoming projects, including Toy Story 5, where he revealed Stanton's role in the film. Andrew Stanton is a big deal. He's actually very talented, and he was one of the original members of the Brain Trust. Do either of you want to explain the concept of the Brain Trust?
The Brain Trust was a little Pixar assemblage of people. I believe Andrew Stanton was one of them. Pete Docter, John Lasseter were the ones that made up the Brain Trust. And they essentially mapped out the stories that each one of the directors would actually undertake. They worked on stories, crafted them as they were in development, worked out story details, plot details, characters, motivations, all of that. It really was something that I think led to Pixar being just the powerhouse in animation that it was for so long.
I think you're right. And when they took that concept over to Disney Animation with the Story Trust, I don't want to call it the Story Group because that's what Lucasfilm has, and obviously that is a different animal right there. This is something that the idea of someone bringing their creative product, because these do need to be products when it comes down to it. They're creative and they're a consumer product at the same time. To have this group of storytellers come together and try to hone this into the best thing that it can be, with John Lasseter at the head. This was Disney at their highest form right here. And I've heard it said by some of my sources within the company that they believe that this is something that most people could not survive under that system of unfettered criticism there to try to make it better. It seems to be going away altogether now as we see things like Strange World and Raya and the Last Dragon, and what's the most recent one? Wish, as in I wish I could remember this film. Actually, I wish I could
40% off
forget
merchandise.
Shoo, yeah, that's very true. So Stanton is a big deal because he's the only Pixar director to have a film in the Criterion Collection with WALL-E, which WALL-E is a film that doesn't have any speaking characters in it other than what is his name? Oh, he's fabulous. He's from all of the Christopher Guest movies. Fred Willard. No speaking roles of the main characters except for a little bit of on-screen exposition from Fred Willard here, and it's beautiful, it's wonderful, and well deserves its place in the Criterion Collection for its commentary on consumerism and materialism. And now that's the only people that Disney markets to. Stanton was a co-director on Bug's Life. He directed Finding Nemo. He directed WALL-E. He directed Finding Dory, which, as far as Pixar sequels go, actually pretty good.
But you're forgetting one, and I think it's very pivotal to this conversation. He also directed John Carter. And I think after that directorial debut, at least in live action, I think that's why the company kind of shied away from him a little bit. And that was really unfortunate because I don't think it was Andrew Stanton's burden to bear when it came to how, not well that movie actually did theatrically.
That's a fair point. I like John Carter a little bit. It's not my absolute favorite. I almost said he directed Tomorrowland, but I realized that was actually Brad Bird that directed Tomorrowland. Brad Bird being one of those many Disney legends that are now over there at Skydance Animation working on something. We don't know what. It's called Raygun. We kind of know what it is, but remains to be seen what the product is.
That was apparently back in a era of Hollywood where if you fail at something, you actually suffer consequences for it. Because, I mean, this guy made banger after banger after banger. And then, all of a sudden he has one flop and that's it. We're done with you. The people that made Madam Web, I heard, have like some big, next project coming up. Hollywood is where you fail upwards now. Right.
So he's been and just so everybody knows what Andrew Stanton has been up to. He directed several episodes of Stranger Things, Better Call Saul, Legion, For All Mankind. These are all things that are getting incredible reviews. And he also directed an episode of The Three Body Problem. So he's been busy. He's also worked on In the Blink of an Eye, which has yet to come out, and several other things. He's currently on the Disney payroll through one form or another. In the Blink of an Eye is a Searchlight production the last time that I checked, but it was supposed to come out last month. It still has not come out. So Andrew Stanton is one of those original Pixar people, and now he's being brought back into the fold. What do we think has happened here?
Desperation?
On whose part?
This is Iger being desperate, I think. I think he realizes there's a problem. We're having flop after flop after flop in animated movies, and he's trying to bring back now people who were involved in what you kind of can say was the renaissance of Disney animation. And, you know, unfortunately, though, I think his hands are going to be tied by the current Disney system, and that's going to be that.
Well, just to put a fine point on that, let's point out Onward, Soul, Luca, Turning Red, Lightyear, and Elemental. And I think Elemental is the biggest one out of all of those, making 500 million globally, meaning that most of that being overseas, and Disney doesn't get nearly as much of that money as they would if it were that successful in the United States. So it's been since 2019 since Pixar has had a hit. I like Luca. I think Luca is probably the only truly great one out of all of them. Turning Red was a little weird and definitely not in that area where I think that it's safe for all children, despite the Pixar brand here. So I also don't want to rag on all of the people who have worked on these films, because there is some real talent involved in all of it. But I think you're right. Andrew Stanton is a name that they can go back from, the director of Finding Nemo and all of these great hits in the past.
Exactly.
Well, I think they're running out of talent. That's one, right? We just did a whole video about how so many people from Disney are going over to Skydance and to join John Lasseter and forming whatever he's doing. He's getting the Avengers back or something. I don't know what's going on. And then, well, obviously, you know, you have to create some hits somewhere. I think Bob Iger understands. It's like, look, listen, maybe people are more receptive to franchises, so let's go ahead and lean into that a little bit. But it's interesting because from the Pixar standpoint, it seems like they kind of know that, you know, these are necessarily cash grabs. It says right here, this is via World Rock Times, quoting Bloomberg right here. Lindsay Collins, a senior vice president of development at Pixar, runs hypotheticals with her teenage children, including her son Cash. The other day I was like, hey, what if I told you that we were making Incredibles 3? And he was like, money grab. And I was like, oh, darn. So, you know, it sounds like they understand that they recognize that, and maybe they want to go into the original realm, but I don't think Bob Iger or anybody else is having it.
First of all, that's a Michael Eisner move right there, asking your teenage child to let you know just how well you're doing. And maybe Disney needs a little bit more of that these days, somebody to look at them and go, no, I can see what you're doing here. Of course, they could just tune into that Park Place and find out how the audience would perceive this if they don't have full faith in them. But that rumor was going around that they're going to reboot Finding Nemo, like the kid's going to get lost again, and reboot The Incredibles or Incredibles 3 without Brad Bird, I'm assuming.
Oh my God. If we start getting Pixar reboots, it's over.
Oh man, so bad.
I think you're absolutely correct. Rebooting animated films is the silliest idea. Trying to restart these things from scratch as if they aren't continuously marketed over and over and over again. 1995 is 3 days ago in little kid years, because it's sitting there on Disney Plus right next to everything else. They don't care. You now have a streaming service where a child might go, okay, yeah, I'm going to go watch Bambi right now, in the same way that they would go watch, I don't know, Elemental, which is their latest release. So rebooting an animated film, you have to do something completely different here. You can't take the same characters and just put them in the same story, because kids will notice.
Wait a minute. Lightyear. I got it.
That's a really good point.
At least Lightyear fit into the established canon. They made it work. But I mean, the problem that, listen, at the end of the day, you know what these remakes would be. I'm convinced that the only reason we haven't gotten a live action Frozen yet is because they're looking at it and they're like, how can we inject diversity and modern audiences into this 2010 movie?
They did it with a show at the Hyperion in California Adventure back when that premiered.
They did.
When I was on last time I was on the Disney Wish, when we went to see the show that night, Elsa was black.
You know what's funny is the Snow Queen is a story in which the Snow Queen is the villain and the Snow Queen is black. So there's a lot of tomfoolery that probably happened with this, making Elsa white because she was probably going to be a villain when that movie was first made. Just hint, hint, wink, wink. It definitely is why they ended up turning her white. And then they realized, well, now that we've made her into a hero, we can't very well shift everything. Snow Queen is a project that was in development in some form at Disney since Walt himself was there. So that one was a long time in gestation, just like Alice in Wonderland took forever to make as well. So we want to throw this to our commenters before we let this conversation keep going forever, because I love talking to these two gentlemen about stuff like this. We want to throw it to you guys and ask you, what do you think about this entire situation? Will Andrew Stanton kick off his long-form, hour-long drama director shoes and put back on his hour-and-a-half to 2-hour Disney Pixar animated film boots? Let us know your thoughts on this whole situation in the comment section down below. Of course, like this video if this is the kind of conversation you would like to keep happening on this channel. And of course, consider subscribing to That Park Place for all the news that should be fun.
Thanks for watching That Park Place News. For more information, consider checking out www.thatparkplace.com. And don't forget to subscribe, share, like, and send this out on your favorite social media accounts.